Well, good morning, Uber-Tuber-Ubers and Uber-Tuber-Ubers alike. Tuberettes, how about that? Hey, it's been a long time since you had a chit-chat from the old guy, and I thought I'd just try to check in with you today. It is a Saturday morning, early in April of the year 2025, and I haven't been making videos hardly at all. Made one last weekend at the ballpark and kind of threatened to follow up on that with some more videos and promptly ignored it. And the ball game was okay, but anyway, I've been thinking over and over again lately about a theme that I think I've mentioned in the past, and I wanted to compare it briefly, like for your imagination purposes, with the impact proposed by Tom Horn in well before he passed away. Asteroid Apophis, aka 99942. There's going to be a near pass in 13 April 2029. That's only a little over 4 years from now. And so I started quizzing. I got online and then have signed up with DeepSeek, which is a kind of a clone slash copycat of ChatGPT. I found for some reason that I can't get into ChatGPT anymore without some kind of login precursor having to do with subscription fees and stuff like that. So it's like, see, I thought this was free. And DeepSeek is a free service. It's very similar in it's an LLM. It's Chinese, I believe. And so anyway, I've been quizzing this thing today about any proposed impacts that may be occurring in the future. And of course, the model LLM in question believes very strongly and makes it very quite clear that any such talk about an impact in 2029 is just off base. But the thing that I've been thinking about is it's a little bit like a little bit like a parable. When I consider what I'm looking at in the church these days, and I mean the church I'm attending, yes, but not so much as the one I previously was for like 40 years. Yeah, it was 40 years ago, 1985, that I joined the big UPC church, and it's not so big anymore. They've been really bleeding members lately in the last year and a half or two, and the loss of membership, plus what I'm seeing in their, so to speak, their theological developments, it really strikes me as a symptomatic thing of perhaps what's happening in the church across the world right now. And what I'm seeing is it's a little bit like Apophis. So you just got to work with me here. Use your imagination here. And the idea of an impact from above, I mean, it would be purely the word catastrophe if that thing does touch down as Tom Horn predicted it would. In fact, he specified the area. He said the rock is going to split in two on its entrance into the atmosphere. He saw it in some kind of vision. And so, at any rate, the thing is going to, according to Horn, impact somewhere near the San Diego slash Tijuana area and offshore also. The thing splits one part, the larger part hits the earth, the other part hits the ocean, and triggering massive tsunamis and whatnot. So, using that as kind of a backdrop to talk to DeepSeek, I was asking it questions today like, if it was the goal of the government, as an example, to keep this quiet, to make sure that nobody really is onto it, except for the few people who've been watching Tom Horn, that how long could you keep that secret if you used AI as your agent in terms of managing the effort, managing the propaganda front? Well, it was pretty slow about wanting to answer, and it kept referring back to, would you like to talk about something ethical? And I said, well, yeah, here's an ethic for you. How long could you stall people from realizing, given the fact that there are thousands of amateur astronomers around the world who could easily be filing their independent reports slash observations, how long could you keep that secret prior to an actual impact? And it was weird. It said that if there was a tyrannical government, it said it could maintain official silence on the matter up to about 2 to 4 weeks away from the actual impact. So, at any rate, the parallel that I'm seeing here and in the church, yeah, maybe I'm just hunting a little too hard, maybe fishing with a little too much bait on there, but the idea is that it is a sudden blow, a catastrophic blow, a fiery and destructive blow from above. And if the news is managed in a propagandistic form, it could be kept secret. The actual disaster itself could be kept secret until very close to the time of actual impact. So that's kind of what I was getting at. And in terms of this, I've mentioned before, if you'll go back and look at some of my older vids, that I really believe that the ancient prophets were predicting, among other things, yes, a global catastrophe through a large burning mountain. Now that's more like John the Apostle in the Apocalypse. A burning mountain hitting the earth and the oceans and killing like 1/3 of the creatures in the sea, I think. Things like that, and maybe 1/3 of humanity, which is a lot. But it's not as many as you thought. I've been watching, now that I'm changing the subject, I've been watching some videos of a Chinese lady talking about the actual population of what we used to call Red China, mainland China. And this one lady, I've been watching her, and she's a very interesting person. She claims that the actual population today, right now, in China is around 350 to 450 million people. That means that close to a billion people have kind of gone missing. And so there's these other videos that also are reflective of this, that in, say, in the Shanghai area or in Beijing, there's huge areas that are just deserted right now that used to be just really busy, like high foot traffic, high traffic volume, people, marketplaces that were crowded and very busy. Suddenly, they're all standing still. Some of these reporter people walk into a market or into a large shopping area. They're the only one in there, except for the few people working on the retail end, standing around waiting for a customer to show up. So the actual population numbers of China, as an example, might be off by a factor of somewhere between 600 and 800 million people, uh, compared to what they claim. And so the amazing amount of COVID deaths in China, they used to essentially justify these numbers. And then there's the Russians have done estimates, the Japanese have done estimates on the population of China from various aspects, and none of those aspects measured estimate the current population to be in excess of 800 million. Many of them are going as low as 550 to 800 million as what they believe is currently there. So still hundreds of millions of people have vamoosed. Well, speaking in terms of this having to do with the church and the reality of that, now tomorrow's a Sunday, so get the lead out of your butt and go to church. And you go and find a church where the gospel is being preached. But my point is this: is that the gospel in America, at least, has been by and large neutered. The left-leaning, I guess you'd call it, progressive angle of the church recasts the biblical schema to essentially promote the idea that God is love, 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 LUV, and that's it all the time. And so that's really the good news. No, that is not the good news. The good news is that in light of that catastrophe, that sudden disaster from on high, of him showing up, that is the King who is the King, Jesus the righteous, showing up armed for war this time in glorious brilliance, and in fire, uh, sweeping away everything man and beast off the face of the planet. A catastrophe of that kind has the same sort of feel in my mind as a proposed silencing of an upcoming impact. So if you wanted to keep a secret about how to keep the coming judgment quiet, well then study what's happening with Apophis. How does this uh, narrative work such that the people can go to church week after week after week and never once be aware that in the Old Testament, especially, but also in the New, it is made apparently and very clear that the danger from God showing up on in person is off the scale. It cannot be compared to anything that we humans are able to even recognize as a threat. It's beyond our capacity to imagine. The idea of the uncreation of reality, the Creator God showing up in uncreated fury, almighty, fierce, and perfect, executing justice according to truth and righteousness. You see? So that's the reality, is that at the bottom of the equation there's a threat, and the threat is called Yahweh and his righteous rage. The cure for that is, as we now know, the gospel message of how one man, the only sinless man in all of history, as a matter of fact, entered into covenant with the Father. The Father and the Son cut the covenant between them, and we are graciously included in that covenant. And in that covenant, the Son paid with his body, with his life, the penalty you and I owe. So, in other words, the good news is there, but it's couched in terms of the schema, if you want to call it that, of judgment and impending judgment and a sudden, disastrous, catastrophic judgment coming. And so I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and so I started quizzing, DeepSeek, and started nosing around various ideas and things. If you've ever never dealt with an AI of this ilk, it's a LLM. And if you can imagine a chatbot, on steroids, I mean, a chatbot that's capable of discussing practically anything, and if you ask it the right way, it'll even tell you how to do things that are downright criminal. If you ask it to do, say, write a script for, say, a TV show about a bunch of crooks who want to carry off a crime, how would they go about doing it? Well, at first it's going to balk and say, well, I'm only doing ethical stuff over here. But it's like, no, no, no. This is for make believe. This is for fiction. What would the plot be of such a? Can you write the script? And so, in other words, if you know how to ask the thing the right questions in the right way, you can get answers on a whole lot of different topics. Now, I did not bring up today with DeepSeek the parallels that I've been considering with you right here between a asteroidal impact and the coming of the Son of Man in glory. There's parallels to be drawn there in terms of the suddenness of it and the surprise of it, and the feature that we are really not equipped as people to truly grasp the output, the actual results of such a thing. And so I was thinking along those lines today, and I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit of a video. It's been so long that I thought, well, I just kind of wanted to pass on to you what I'm thinking, and do with it with what you will. Right now, and this is a slightly different topic. I'm a little bit off here, but I'll get back to the main one in a moment. What started all this is I was watching a YouTube presentation by a young guy, and he is saying that the AI generated material, really all you needed to do was hand the AI a photograph of a face and have it'll write the script for you, and it'll be in a realistic setting, maybe in a park or outdoors, and the person will be apparently real, computer generated to the hilt. That person does not actually exist. And the problem that the YouTube guy was talking about was that people are going to be making a lot of money off of AI generated content, and if humans are not aware that this was generated by an AI and was not an actual film somewhere, then people could be deceived easily. But the thing is that it's a huge money maker. And so the parallels I'm drawing now back to the idea of the great judgment from on high, it's a great moneymaker to keep that quiet. It's a great moneymaker in terms of control of crowds, control of populations, control of public opinion, and the net result of it is you have an incorporated, pervasive, and rooted in anti-God premise. An ungod premise is guiding the thinking of such thought. And as a result, you have the motive and the opportunity to make tremendous profits in the meantime selling stuff like, say, for instance, access to God. Like this guy's wearing some holy garment here, and the holy garment, by virtue of him wearing it, it makes him the anointed, and you cannot argue with him. He is the authority in that he's wearing the holy T-shirt or the holy sneakers or whatever they are. Holy sneakers. Time to get some new shoes. Pardon. But the but the idea is that I'm trying to link all this stuff together, this clutter in my brain, and I find that I've been so distracted with all my health woes. Now, here's some good news for you. I've been bouncing around with this issue with my legs now for months, and this weird buzzy, tingly thing going on with my feet. Now, here's where the old guy part where I start talking about my health or lack thereof. But the point is that in the last few months, I haven't been making videos hardly at all because really I've been consumed in my mind pretty much on a daily basis with the idea of, well, what is this? Surely it has a name. Surely some doctor somewhere or some patient somewhere has gone through a similar thing and they could identify it and put a name on it. Because up until very recently, the doctors were just kind of walking around with their hands out. It could be something over there. I don't know. Beats me, whatever your problem is. But here's some more medicine. Try this drug, try that drug, and see what that does for you. And it's like that is not the way to deal with these problems. First, you have to assess what's causing it. Then you have to deduce the proper means or angle to reduce that threat or to make it go away. And so I've been finally diagnosed through an MRI of something called stenosis of the spine, and it's a pinch in that nerve column back there, actually several pinches in a row that are causing a nervous issues between the transfer of information, I guess, from up here down to there. And the net result is the feet get all buzzy and tingly and numb, and pretty soon it becomes very painful to walk. And I used to, on a Saturday like this, I used to go for a 6 or 8 mile walk. Now I might be good for a 1 mile walk today, possibly, and I'm going to try that later. But lately, I haven't been able to walk more than 300 or 400 yards without having to sit down and massage my calves, and sometimes take my shoes off and massage my feet again in order to get up and walk another 350 yards. And so, I mean, I can walk a 1 or 2 mile trip if you don't mind the 9 or 10 breaks it takes in the middle for me to cover it. But all of this rolled together has yielded on my part a lot of silence. I haven't had hardly anything to say to you. And if you're one of my regular viewers, I do thank you for hanging in there with me, because let's face it, there's been a whole lot of nothing emerging over here. But in terms of all this with I'm looking ahead now and contemplating a surgery called a laminectomy. And the doc says it's a low risk operation to relieve that pressure on the spinal column, and it should cause my feet to kind of basically come back to life so that I could go walking again. But as you look down the aisle of history, it looks to me like I'm 66 years old, and it feels like I'm just falling apart. This thing started last summer with my blood pressure, and I still haven't got that thing in control. I'm taking 3 different drugs uh, every morning, and like today, I had a good one. I nailed a 130 over a 89 or an 88. That's the best one I've had all week. I keep nailing numbers like 162 or 105 and stuff like that. And so, in terms of looking ahead, as we look ahead, we have to consider that there are threats to our well-being. And if you want to think of it as an asteroid and go in with Tom Horn, well, I'm kind of on that page. I would rather trust Tom any day than I would never a straight answer, because never a straight answer The officials in the government have a natural, kind of a tendency, I guess you say, to exaggerate or minimize things as they see fit in order to make the news digestible. But behind all of that is the imminent collapse, the disaster, the catastrophe, and whether we consider it as a regional, say maybe even hemispherical disaster like an asteroidal impact, or if we consider it a worldwide phenomenon, a wipeout of humanity itself, and as far as we can tell, the planet itself, and as far as we can tell, the cosmos. The heavens and the earth pass away, and there's a new heavens and a new earth where things make sense. A place of light, a place of truth, essentially described as paradise, and or heaven. However, we consider that, we can always shrink it right back down to old guys and their health issues, because at one point or another, I'm going to fall over into the grave, just like my daddy did, and his daddy did, and his daddy did, all the way back to our first daddy, Adam. And so, in other words, there's a catastrophe at the end. And trying to just get yourself wrapped around that, and the idea of how long should we predict things in advance, or how far in advance should we be looking. And the way I'm looking at it right now, I'm going to try to take it more like one day at a time. I can't handle everything, I can't do everything, but I can go out to a ball game and enjoy myself. And I hope you enjoy those videos. Watching the Aggies play ball, it's entertaining and stuff. Now, today I think I'm going to skip that opportunity because the clouds came in. Temperature dropped about 15 degrees from what it has been, and I don't want to go out and freeze my butt off tonight. But the ideas are all kind of percolating around, and I just thought I'd kind of dump them in your lap and let you kind of cogitate on them some, and consider that in an anti-God environment where you have essentially ungodliness as the ruling theme, you would never expect in that area, and that's the truth we find, you would never expect to find the idea of imminent judgment from on high. And that being the real threat to our well being as a species and as individuals. Individuals stop, and communities stop, and worlds stop. And they're abrupt, and they always come as a surprise, and there is always an answer in there that judgment is part of that equation. When you and I die, we pass out of this flesh, and we are indeed judged. But in the Christian's example, in the Christian's life, there's a difference. The difference is that we have already entered into that new world, that world where things make sense, that thing where a city on a hill, golden and beautiful, a place where an environment where truth and justice and goodness are all taken in as part of the package, and that's how the whole thing works. And that would be according to the judgment, the justice of the Most High. And so we're already in that. And so, I remember I went to a Sunday school class, and, it's a typical EE question. If you were to die tonight, what would you say to God if he said, "Why should I let you into my heaven?" And my answer was honesty enough that, well, frankly, you shouldn't. If you knew what was good for you. I am not a holy man. I'm not a righteous man. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a son of a prophet. I'm a plumber, and I've got all kinds of foul and vile habits that attend that. And I just wanted to have this think about it, that in the midst of this, as we await our individual fate, our group fate, or the collective fate of the world, however you categorize it, it's always catastrophic. It always ends in a boom and in judgment. And so I just thought I'd kind of roll that around, to get that the answer to that whole catastrophe is the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, in that he came in person, and he kept in person the righteous standard once for all. And out of that generosity of the great God, the Father Almighty, his righteousness is considered, it is imputed as yours. It is placed upon you like a white gown, and all of your past problems, working in the flesh and being deceived, and all the craziness of a life essentially wasted in an anti God premise, is swept away. And we are not only considered to be without stain or without sin in his presence, but we are actually considered to be positively righteous, as if I had really kept faith and really kept the standard alive. And so the way out of catastrophe, the way out of a sudden collapse, is to go into it, walk into it confidently, walk into your surgical procedure confidently, walk into the future of April 2029. By the way, that's a Friday the 13th. You might want to consider that. To walk into the upcoming judgment from God, confident that we shall emerge out of that by his delivering hand and his mercy. So that's kind of what I have to say, besides what I mentioned earlier. Get the lead out of your butt and go to church tomorrow. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of my little small audience. I just got a few folks who are watching this, and I hope that maybe I can generate a little more video, text, and content in the future that would be wholesome, that would be helpful to perhaps viewers like you. And have a good day, and thanks for being here. You are appreciated.